Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome back to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, who are our new producers, or whether you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, it's good to have you along for the experience. Some people watch, some people listen, some people call up on the telephone to listen with Torah Anytime. Wherever you are, it's the tens of thousands of people who get a chizuk from this show. My new producer, Ari, told me, he says there's a whole backlog of questions and comments. Nobody's been managing them. And he started going through them. He says, do you know how many emails you get of people telling you how much chizuk they get from this? And I was like, nope. So I'll send you a few. So you know what? Maybe before I do that, let me read my sponsorship. Yosef and Dr. Chana Richman. Hi, Rabbi Orlofsky. My wife and I love your show, and we gain so much from listening to you. We love your powerful insights and incredible sense of humor, and we are constantly amazed by how you use both to weave your way through so many complicated topics, all the while coming out with a practical, real-world application. That is so nice, because you figured out there's a method to my madness. I used to give a shir every other Motzi Shabbos in Har Nof. And there used to be hundreds of people who come. Now it's like 2 people. But when I used to do it, people would say to me, what is your goal with this shir? And I said, I have 4 goals when I give a shir. I said, first of all, it's got to be a chiddush. Because I have people who would come to this shir who were Talmidei Chachamim. I was always amazed that they would come. But they would come and they would... They enjoyed the Torah that I had to say and the chiddush that I had to say. And then other people come and they say, I'm coming for the inspiration. I can't get out to many shiurim. And here in Eretz Yisrael, Motzi Shabbos, that's your entire weekend. And as you go from Shabbos, Motzi Shabbos, and then Sunday morning you're back to work. So that someone's giving me their entire weekend. So they want to be inspired. And then it's got to be entertaining. Because today, that's where we are. We want to be entertained in our Torah. Part of that is not just for my audience, part of that is for me, because if it's boring, I'll fall asleep. I hate speeches. I always have. There are pictures of me on panels where I'm on a panel with like 3 or 4 other people, and I always have the same expression. It's like, I can't always handle speeches, but it should be entertaining. And the 4th thing is it should be practical. Yeah, it has to be practical. So you basically figured out my whole system over here. And you know that when we talk about, it might be the most mundane topic, there's always chaymer in there. Sometimes you don't realize it. In fact, I used to have a guy who'd come to my Motzi Shabbos shir, and he'd always have a good time. And one time he couldn't come, he listened to the tape, and he says, I don't realize it when you're talking, because I'm having such a good time, but you say a lot of deep things. I said, what are you trying to do, kill my parnasa? Just say he's funny. Leave it at that. But the idea that, hopefully it'll be practical and it'll be meaningful and something that people are going to enjoy and get something out of. Yeah. So I wanted to sponsor your show in honor of my wife on our 5th anniversary on September 6th, the 17th of Elul. That is beautiful. This is the 2nd dedication to spouses that we've had. And gentlemen and ladies, if you care about your loved ones, you will sponsor an episode for them. If not, then you're going to have to sign up for my online Shalom Bayis course. And that's going to be more expensive, trust me. I wanted to thank Hashem for blessing me with such an Eishes Chayil. And my prayer is that all the singles in Klal Yisrael who are looking to get married will be blessed with finding such an Eishes Chayil. That's talking about the men. I'm hoping that the girls don't find such an Eishes Chayil, but find a wonderful Ben Torah. Listen, I know it's controversial today, but here on the Rabbi Orlofsky Show, we take stances. If not before this Rosh Hashanah, certainly married before the next. Amen. Lastly, I wanted to give Rabbi Orlofsky a bracha that you should continue to share Torah in good health and strength for many years to come. Thank you so, so much. And as it happens, I mentioned that there is a backlog of questions. There are also some comments. I wanted to read a couple of the comments that were sent to me. Whatever my producer sends to me, I read. Yeah. Thanks for all the wonderful chizuk and support you give to Klal Yisrael. I'm a bacher learning in yeshiva, and listening to your shiurim is a form of aleph for me and gives me koch to carry on trying. Hashem should bench you with only hatzlacha and bracha. Thank you so much, and I can't tell you how much that means, that to know that, I'm helping somebody who's in yeshiva. That to me is so important. I'm a Masifta Bacher in America who has secular studies. I can't put my or many of my friends' appreciation for you and your show into words. So I will just say thank you so much and hope you can derive the heartfelt appreciation invested in this statement. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so that's what it goes. But now, I have a backlog of questions. It's so interesting. When the podcast first started, I spoke for about 45 minutes. And as time went on, I started talking more, which is a little counterintuitive. Because you'd think after like 300 hours, you'd get tired after a while. We're coming to our 6th year anniversary. We're about to start our 7th year, and we're coming up to our 300th episode. So this is going to be a milestone. Yeah, I should announce that if anyone is going to be in Israel or you're in Israel and you would like to come for a filming of the show, just contact us and we let you know. We've had a studio audience for the past few shows. And anybody's welcome to come and see how the magic happens. And it's really exactly what you're looking at. People could not believe it. They said, "You mean this is it? This is the bookcase, and this is the chair, and you just sit in front of it, and that's the sign, right? That's it. There's nothing else." This is where the magic happens. So people are welcome to come and to see. And I'm sure for the anniversary show, we're going to have to do something special. So anybody who would like to participate in that, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, because AI hasn't told me what I'm going to be speaking about. But so anyway, you'd think that after all this time I would run out of things to say, but apparently not. I still find more stuff to say, to the point where I talk too much that I've had a number of episodes where I didn't even get to any questions. So the questions are backlogging. And this is a big problem. I'm going to tell you something. I may have even mentioned this in a different podcast. I don't remember what I say. Stephen Covey, in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about time management. And he says there have been 4 iterations of time management. The first thing was a to-do pad. I still remember this. When I used to go to the printers in the 1980s, when I was running NCSY, they would give out, free things that they would print up just as advertising. And what was it? A to-do list. Just make a list of all the things you have to do. The problem is, if you've ever tried a to-do list, you write down 6 things to do today, you do 2 of them, and then tomorrow you add another 6 things, and you just keep falling so far behind that you never catch up. I think it was John Ford. I might not be correct. I'm sure my fact checkers out there will check me out. But he was a famous director, and the studio said, you're a week behind schedule. And he calls over the script boy with the script, and he says, how many pages do we film a day? And he says, 6 pages. So he takes the script at random, rips out 42 pages, throws it on the ground, and he says, now we're on schedule. Now, I don't want to do that with all of the questions that I've received. Just throw them away. Every now and then someone says to me, I sent you an email and you never responded to it. Let me explain to you why. Because my email program, which is Outlook, gives you a little window where you can only see like 6 emails at a time and 20 emails download at a time. And so the emails keep moving further and further down. And when I do get around to answering them, I answer the ones that I can see, and the ones that have sunk down, I have to scroll down to go and find them, etc. That's a much more involved job. And so I mean to do that, by the way. I'm going to take a day, I don't know when, bli neder, and I'm just going to go and just, see how many of these things I can run through at a time and go through. I remember somebody wrote me a question, and I got around to answering it, and the person said to me, "I sent this to you 4 years ago." I said, "Well, I hope it wasn't an emergency." Anyway, but so we have a backlog. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take an episode and just get through as many of these questions as have been here, and the ones that I have over here, and just try to plow through them and see what's happening. So okay, by Anonymous. And I have to say, this is one of the biggest problems, that Anonymous asks the most questions. Anonymous keeps asking questions, and it almost leaves me no room for anybody else. Hi, Rabbi Orlofsky. Thank you so much for this shiurim and shir that you bring into my life. I listen to your podcast constantly and wait each week for the new one to come out. I have a question. In every Beis Yaakov school, they're always telling you that to grow in Yiddishkeit, you need to work on something. That's in quotes. Which is incredibly vague. Yes, it is. What does it mean to grow? How can a person achieve growth? And more importantly, what are steps to take to work on something? How do I find what to work on and how to do it? I hope that was clear. Thank you so much again for the chizuk you give me and all of Klal Yisrael. So, siyata d'shmaya that I didn't answer these questions beforehand. Because Rabbi Salanta says that this is the key to Elul. The key to Elul is that you have to make a cheshbon hanefesh. I have to say this just for a moment, because I, for many years, taught Mesilas Yesharim. And in Mesilas Yesharim and Zehiris, he stresses the importance of a cheshbon hanefesh, ad kedei kach, that he says that without a cheshbon hanefesh, you will stand no chance of defeating your Yetzer Hara. Kol hasham archasa ba'olam hazeh zoicha v'roya liyeshuas Hashem. If you make a cheshbon in this world, then the Kadosh Baruch Hu will give you Yeshuas Hashem. And without that, you cannot defeat the Yetzer Hara. And every year when I teach it, girls tell me that they heard from teachers, sometimes in the seminary I was teaching, or sometimes in high school, we can't make a cheshbon hanefesh today because it'll just depress us. Well, that is one of the most depressing things I've ever heard. Because if that's the case, what it basically means is that the only way to be able to save yourself and to grow in your avodas Hashem is by making a cheshbon hanefesh. Zehiris, which is all about a cheshbon hanefesh, is the first step on the road to achieving shleimus. And if you take that away, what are you supposed to do? So the answer is, it's like checking for bugs. Right? There is a way to check fruits and vegetables to make sure that there are no bugs. I will tell you a story. And I'm not paskening, but I'll tell you a story. I heard this from 2 people. There are people who do not eat figs and dates because they're muchzak to have bugs. And I heard from 2 different people who said they saw Rav Scheinberg cut it open, hold it up and look at it, and say that I don't see anything here, it's fine. And he would eat the figs and the dates. Now, perhaps he just had much better vision than everybody else. I don't know. I know in Israel, people are constantly sifting their flour. Now, I'm here almost 40 years. Full disclosure, when I first came, sometimes, rare occasions, but sometimes you would find little bugs in flour. But starting about 20 years ago, I never found one bug. And I'm talking about kilos and kilos that I sifted. And I asked a very choshev paisik diet, and he says, if Taki, you don't find any bugs, then it's not muchsak to have bugs. You don't have to sift it. I'm not paskening. I'm not that kind of a rabbi. Yeah, just telling you ma'aser shahi. My trainer and friend for many years, Michael Friedman, told me that he used to work with certain Rosh Yeshiva exercising, and he asked two of them, how do you prepare strawberries? They both told him the same thing, that you have to cut off the top and cut it in half and put it in warm soapy water, and swish it around, and if you don't see anything in the water, rinse it off and it's fine. So he says, but there are other poskim who say, that you can't eat them. So both of them gave the same answer. He says, then tell them not to eat it. So he made a mitzvah, he told me, and he told his kids, I'll give you 50 shekels for every bug you find in strawberries. They were sitting there with toothpicks, taking off the little black seeds on the outside. He says, one time I paid out because there was a fly in the box. It landed in the box. So what happens? So people don't eat fruits and vegetables. Why? Not because it can't be eaten, but because for many people, halacha has been replaced with besser nisht. Besser nisht. I know I have people who are not familiar with certain basic Yiddish phrases. It means better not. Better not. That's not a psak. That's not a psak. It doesn't work that way. There has to be halacha. So there's a way to prepare fruits and vegetables. And therefore, so people say, well, because there's a problem with bugs, instead I'll eat potato chips and corn chips, I'll drink soda, you know what I mean? But there's a mitzvah d'oraisa, shmartem es nafsho seichem. And fruits and vegetables are an essential part of your diet. You need it. The nutrients. I remember, I've been a professional dieter most of my life, and very often they say the reason you're always hungry is because you're starving. You ate all day. You didn't eat anything that gives your body nutrition. I heard a story. I don't know if it's true, but I'm not Pesach Kron, so I don't care. That they gave a box of Fruit Loops to some rats, and they ate the box because they sensed there was more nutrition in it than in the Fruit Loops. Amazing. But, so the answer is not don't eat fruits and vegetables. Figure out how to check them properly. Yeah. And if not, then get somebody to do it. Woody Allen said, he went to when he was younger, he went to one of these, self-defense courses to learn how to defend himself. And then he realized he was never going to succeed. So he just paid the teacher to walk him home at night. So get somebody who knows how to do it. Today you can get bug-free vegetables and you can get sifted flour and you get everything, if you're nervous. But the answer is not don't eat fruits and vegetables. The same thing by a cheshbon hanefesh. The fact that people do a cheshbon hanefesh wrong, and then based upon that, they say, I can't do a cheshbon hanefesh, too difficult. They're making a terrible mistake. So, So let's address your question, right? Which is, what does it mean to change, and how do I do it? Because it's vague. Of course it's vague. Everything is vague. If you saw last week's episode where I was speaking with Rabbi Rudman, I said, when you ask people what to do during Elul, tshuva. And it says, "May tshuva, tshuva." And Sukkot, tshuva. And in between Sukkot and Chanukah, tshuva. And Shovavim, tshuva. And Sfiras Ayim, tshuva. And tshuva. But it doesn't help me. I need specifics. So, Rabbi Salanta said, these are the 4 steps you have to do during Elul in order to be able to walk into Rosh Hashanah. Now listen closely. And I'm pretty sure I must have said this earlier, but like I say, 6 years, my gosh, 300 hours. Who remembers what I said? And that's me talking, because I have met a dozen people who know everything I've ever said and recite it back to me before I can finish a line, But I'm the only one who doesn't remember what I say. 4 steps, he says. Step number 1 is, who do you want to be at the end of your life? Very important. I used to say this for years, but then I saw Stephen Covey says it in The 7 Habits, so I'll quote him. He says, every business needs a mission statement. What is our prime directive? What are we trying to do? Yeah. He tells a story where he was in a hotel and he was shocked by the service that he was receiving from everybody in the hotel. He asked the question of somebody where something was, or how do I get this? And the guy was up on top of a ladder cleaning the window. He climbed down and walked to the office and got it from everybody. He says, so I sat down with the manager and I said, I teach people how to, run businesses and service organizations. What did you do? He says, we had a meeting with everybody on the staff. The managers, the catering, the housekeeping, the bellhops, the front desk, the maintenance people, everybody. And we said, we want to be a successful business so that we all make money and we're all successful. What do you think we should do? And we all talked it through. And as a group, we came up with, provide the best service to our customers that you can. And we were all accepted upon ourselves. Beyond anything else we do is not as important as taking care of our customers. That's a mission statement. And because they had clear what it was that they wanted to do, right? They were able to be successful. He says, people need a mission statement. Their own personal mission statement. And he says, that's called a eulogy. Write your eulogy. What is the life that you wanted to have led at the end of your life when you look back? And most people have no idea. Most people don't know what they want. Most people don't plan their lives out. And if they do, they plan a couple of years ahead. To think, who do I want to be when I'm 90? It used to be the average age was under 70. That's why they made the retirement age at 65. You retire at 65, you got 3 or 4 years to play golf, and then you die. That's it. Now people live to their 80s and 90s. And you planned your life to what? 40? So who do I want to be at the end of my life? And be as descriptive as you can. Write it out. Dream your dreams. Now is the time to dream dreams. That's this part of the equation. Sit down and say to yourself, really think it through with as much detail as you can. I've told this story many times. Somebody said to me, what do you want people to say at your funeral? Look, he's moving. But if not that, think about it. What is it that I want to have accomplished? And write it down with as much detail as you possibly can. That's number 1. Number 2 is take on a small Kabbalah for this coming year. He says 1, I say not more than 3. But they have to be small. Because, based on your question, when it comes to changing, there are 3 areas. There are things that I could change easily, very easily. Right? I'll give you a simple Kabbalah that mistama you could do. Almost anybody could do. Put it stuck a box, someplace that's convenient, and every day put in a coin. Something easy. Yeah? Something that doesn't hurt. They say Rav Shach, when they asked him for a Kabbalah, what kind of Kabbalah? He says, well, I was makabel on myself that when I bench on Shabbos, I'm going to use a bencher. That story's been making the rounds for years. Is it true? I don't know. I'm not Pesach Crown. That's the story I heard. But it means something small. And that's why so again, there are things you could change easily. There are things that you could change with effort. You could do it, but it's hard. And there are things that are impossible for you to change right now, who you are. I just got a very painful email. Someone who says, I'm in my 50s and I'm just a terrible person. I have terrible midos. And he starts listing all of his terrible midos. He says, well, am I a Gilgul of a Rasha? I mean, well, why am I so bad? How do I do this? I'll tell you what you don't do. What you don't do is say, okay, tomorrow, no more bad midos. Ta-da! Time's up, you're cured. It doesn't work that way. So that's why there are things that people could change, but I can't do it now. And for some reason, whenever people will take on Kabbalahs before Rosh Hashanah, they take it from the third category. So they say, I'm never going to speak Lashon Hara again. Okay. Assuming that you're about Lashon Hara, or play one on television, it's going to be very hard for you to give that up. Cold turkey. I don't know where that expression is from. I really like cold turkey. Anyway, so you don't do that. So people take on a Kabbalah. I'm never going to speak Lashon Hara again. And then they do. And then what happens? And then they feel bad. And it reinforces in them, you see, I can't change. So if you took on one, no more than 3, very small Kabbalahs, to the point where you look at your Kabbalahs and say, that's nothing, great, then that means you will succeed. Based on your question, you sound like you're a regular watcher of the show, so you know one of my favorite expressions. Everybody does what everybody does because that's what everybody does. And so you're asking the question, they tell us to change. How do you change? I don't know how to change. Of course not. Because most people are very content where they are. And nobody thinks any more or goes any further. And you read your Emily Dickinson, and I my Robert Frost, and we mark our place with bookmarkers that measure what we've lost. What a sad song. Oh, Simon and Garfunkel is sad. It's music to kill yourself by. But it's like, yeah, people just go on. Life goes on, and nobody becomes any better. And people make the same mistakes in their 20s, and their 40s, and their 60s because they don't have a method. So take something small for this coming year. That's it. And then you say to yourself, okay, I succeeded. Look at that. I can change. Lordy, Lordy. Yeah. Jumping Jehoshaphat. I actually can change. So you know what? That gives you the strength to change something else. But if you set unrealistic expectations, then yeah, you're going to fail. And you're going to fail over and over again. And you're going to reinforce the notion that you can't change. So the reason it's vague is because it depends on the person. So every now and then you meet somebody who says, I've been makabel on myself, I'm not going to listen to Goyish music. Okay. For some people, that would be a silly Kabbalah because they never listen to Goyish music. secular music, if you will. And other people say, I couldn't handle that. I can't live with that. It used to be after Discovery seminar, people would have a meeting with Noach Weinberg, and they're totally non-observant, and they say, I want to start doing something. And he would give them a category. Says, could you keep kosher? Says, no. Could you give up cheeseburgers? No. Could you give up shellfish? Maybe clams. Okay. Makabel on yourself, I'm not going to eat clams. Yeah. Can you keep Shabbos? No. Can you not drive on Shabbos? No. Can you not go shopping on Shabbos? Okay. So makabel on yourself that I'm not going to go shopping on Shabbos. There were dock workers who used to work on Shabbos. Rabbi Orlofsky said to them, if you're going to work Shabbos, at least don't smoke. When you say, I have to keep Shabbos, but don't smoke. That you don't have to do, right? There was a time in America where if you didn't work Shabbos, it was almost impossible to get a job. And my father told me that on Shabbos and Yontif, there'd be these very early minyanim. People would go to shul, daven, and then go to work. Well, whatever I can do, I can do. And another one of my favorite expressions, just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you can't do anything. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, and this is very important, choose something a little more challenging for the Seres Tshuva, not something that's impossible. Shulchan Aruch brings, for example, not eating pas akum and eating pas Yisrael. If you live in Israel, that's very easy. But something that's a little bit, that you don't plan on keeping the whole year, right? Why? What's the purpose of that? Well, I'm not a morning person. I usually daven at a 7:10 minyan. Sometimes I'll go to a 7 o'clock minyan. On Rosh Chodesh, I'll sometimes go to a 6:30 minyan. But during Slichos week, it could start at 6:15, 6:20. So that's the 7 o'clock minyan. So I have to get up at 5:45. And I'm really pushing myself during Slichos. And one time, someone said to me, wow, look how much extra time you have. Why don't you get up at this time every morning? And I said, because I will pass away. That's why. I cannot handle this. I can push myself for a short period of time, but I can't do it on a regular basis. I just can't. The sleep deprivation starts to catch up with you after a while. And you start having conversations with people like, you ever talk to someone who's really jet lagged? And you say to them, and they're like, going to? And they go, yeah. Oh, okay. Because after with that, going? Yeah, I'm going to be going there. They have no idea what you're saying, but it doesn't make a difference because they're so jet lagged that they're trying to figure out, they're sure it's their problem. Or somebody once said, if you ever want to end of a conversation, hang up while you're talking. Because they feel he'll never hang up on himself. So take something slightly like, now what's the point over here? We're fooling God. We're going to say, I'm going to take on something just for a week that I have no intention of doing. So I'll tell you why, in my opinion. I'm addressing myself now to the ladies in the audience. You're getting ready for a chasana. If you're of the male persuasion, it's much easier. You anyway wear a hat and jacket, so you put on your other hat. Maybe you put on your other shoes. Maybe you put on a tie. Some people always wear ties, so they don't even do that, And they're done, and they sit on the couch. Well, a team of crack professionals come in to put the women together. Someone's doing their hair, someone's doing their nails, someone's doing their makeup. Someone is sewing them into the dress, because the dress, if you can sit down, then there's obviously, it's not tight enough. They're sewing them into the dress. Inhale. So why are they doing all this? Because when they get to the hall, they're going to take that picture with the rose. And that's it. Then they're going to go home. They're going to be cut out of their dress. They're going to have to try to take off all the makeup. They're going to remove all the hair, extensions they put in. And go back to who they regularly are. And then about 2 months later, they're going to get up one morning wearing their ratty bathrobe and their fuzzy slippers in the shape of an animal and no makeup, hunched over. And they're going to be dragging themselves with a industrial strength coffee. And they pass that picture on the mantelpiece. And they say to themselves, I can't believe I ever looked that good. And the answer is, you always look that good. You just don't take the time to put yourself together all the time. But you could be more than you are. You're not ready for it yet, but know where you are. As Reb Tzadok HaKohen says, when we came to the Yam Suf, we had a Gilei Shechina. We weren't on the level for a Gilei Shechina. God revealed himself to us. That wasn't going to happen until Har Sinai. But very often along the path, God will give you a glimpse of what's waiting for you at the end, of who you could be. That's the third step. And the fourth step is write it down. He says, Kaneh lecha chaver, a kaneh is a quill. Yeah? Kaneh lecha chaver, your pen is your friend. Because in the Olam HaMachshava, it's not going to turn into Maisa. The Olam HaDibur, it's not. But if you write it down and you make it into the Olam HaMaisa, you make it real. So write down as much as you can who I want to be at the end of my life. What small thing I'm going to change this year? What one thing I'm going to take on for the Aseres Me'tshuva? And write these things down. And that is a practical way to being able to make a change. And now I'll give you one last tip on how to make a cheshbon hanefesh. It's in the Sefer Cheshbon hanefesh. I use it as a slightly different thing. Let's say you forget to daven. Right? So you just forget. You forget to daven, or you're not always motivated to daven, etc. Here's the line that people say. The problem is I never daven. Now the odds are that's not true. It might be you often don't daven, but you probably don't never daven. So get yourself, if you're old like me, one of those little notebooks where you write down Shema, Shin Mem Ayin, Shachris Mincha Arvis. And don't try anything. Just keep track. Every time you daven, give yourself a check. And every time you don't, you give yourself an X. At the end of the month, add up your checks. Right away, you'll be surprised by how many checks are there, because you're sure you never daven. And now, you build out from there. Say, okay, now I have a consciousness. I want to beat that number next month. Okay, so the first month I daven 7 times. The next month, because I'm keeping track now, I daven 14 times. Next month, 22 times. I'm doing great. Next month, 21 times. Next month, 22 times. Okay, I have now plateaued. So now I need to come up with a tachbula, with a trick, or some kind of technique to examine and see, why am I not davening? Maybe I need a davening partner. Maybe I need somebody to remind me. I see Tuesdays, I miss mincha because, I have a busy day that day. Where am I going to do it on Tuesdays? How am I going to fit this in, etc.? And you develop a consciousness. There are people who have used this method successfully, and even after they beat it, they still keep counting. Decades later. And you can apply this to anything. You can do this with anything. See how many times. If you're working on a midah, for example? How many times did I lose my temper? And how many times did I want to lose my temper and I didn't? Likewise, if you get past that, you could then move to how many times did I want to get angry and I didn't, and how many times did I not even get upset that I normally would have gotten upset. You can use this for midos, you can use this for anything, right? I know somebody who lived in Eretz Yisrael, lived in Yerushalayim, and he wanted to make sure he went to the kaisel at least once a month. And that's what he had. He would have kaisel on the top of each month, give it a check or an X. Did I make it to the kaisel this month or not? Right? Okay. I hope that is helpful. By Meish Chedov. After every Tisha B'Av and during the following Elul Tshuva season, that's where we are, I ask myself, am I really so bad? Am I really playing a part in why the Geula hasn't arrived? Or is it actually just everyone else's fault? Noach Weinberg used to do this thing where somebody would come in, and he was trying to convince him to stay and learn for a few weeks. So he'd ask him, are you a good person or a bad person? And the person would always say, I'm a good person. And he says, who's more likely to say he's a good person or a bad person? It's a brilliant observation. Mad Dog, forgot his last name. He was a famous gangster in the Dillinger and Bonnie and Clyde era. Anyway, he had shot a cop, he had robbed all these banks, he did all these terrible things. And as the police were closing in on him, he said to his girlfriend, I don't know why this is happening. I can honestly say I've never done anything wrong in my life. They did studies of people on death row who are being sentenced to death. They have very high self-esteem. They don't think they're bad people. Yeah? They can explain away everything. There's a story, it might be apocryphal, but this guy drives to his Reformed temple in Yom Kippur, and he says to his friend, he says, Mike, we're so much better than those Orthodox Jews. He says, why do you say that? He says, I passed by the Orthodox shul, everybody's crying, beating their chest. They must have done lots of bad things. Here, no one's doing that because we're all good people. You understand? The first step to change is recognizing that I have shortcomings. And if a person can look at themselves and say, yeah, I'm perfect, I've never done anything wrong, you're selling yourself short. Now, the way you phrase the question is important, because you said, am I really that bad? Well, how bad do you have to be? To say, I don't know who coined the expression, but if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Right? I haven't met many great people in my life who did not look at themselves as choser, as lacking, that I need to improve and I need to grow. So, do I need to take all the blame myself? Well, here's the deal. If you take all the blame yourself, then you understand that means it's all dependent just on you. And that's what the Yetzer Hara wants to make you feel like you're not important. Yeah, I think God cares what I do. I'm going to bring the Geula. I'm going to bring Mashiach. Nobody believes it. But if I know that Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam, the entire world was created for me, and I'm the single most important person in creation, and I can bring the Geula. People ask me for brachas. I give them readily. First of all, I'm a Kohen, so I'm part of the union. But besides that, I say to myself, why shouldn't my bracha give children to the childless, parnasa to the people who can't feed their family, find a shidduch for single people? Why not? Ich bin a Yid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Jewish people the power of bracha. So what does everybody else do? Yeah, I'm not that good, I'm not so great, I'm not so this. Forget about it. Maybe I am. I don't know. I'm certainly not the worst person in the world. I know who that is. but I'm looking at it from the point of view, and that's one of the twisted things, we say Bishvili Niver Olam. I think it was Schroeder. It was either Schroeder or Linus. I think it was Schroeder. Says to Lucy, everybody was put into this world to make people happy. And she thinks about it, and she shakes her little fist and says, there are a lot of people out there not doing their job. You understand? In other words, because I should be looking at it, the world was created for me, and everybody is here for me. No. The world was created for me, and therefore I'm the most important person in creation. I can bring the geula. I can bring the bracha. I can solve all the problems. Why not? I've told the story beforehand. The founder of Chazak was speaking once when I was speaking, and he says, I basically started this organization to bring Mashiach. And people started laughing, and he looked at him and said, I'm not kidding. And I was like, whoa, this guy actually believes it. That's right. I believe it too. Why shouldn't I be the one to bring Mashiach? How do I know? And that's why the Yetzer Hara wants to convince you that what you do is not important, it's that you don't try. By anonymous, does Rabbi Orlofsky have a method of being able to retain focus when learning alone? It can be quite frustrating to have such a lack of focus, especially as I also have ADD. Yeah, I make no bones about it. I have ADD, I have dyslexia, I have basically every learning disability. Whenever they find a new one, they test me for it, and I have it, And people don't talk about it, which I think is a terrible thing. A fellow contacted me once. He was writing a book on dyslexia, and he says, can I quote you that you said that you have dyslexia? And I said, yeah. He goes, you're the only rabbi who will admit to it, and I'm sure there are other people who have it. And I said, yeah. And I certainly have ADD. But nobody will mention it. I was speaking once someplace, and I mentioned about my ADD, and this Rosh Kollel came over to me. And he says, count your blessings. He says, you have ADD. That just means that your mind wanders all the time. So they just sit in the back of the class, and you just go. He says, I have ADHD. I was the one bouncing off the walls. So I was the one who got beaten. They didn't beat you kids. They just left you in the back and forgot about you, I gave this eitzah earlier, when it comes to davening is very hard because my mind wanders. Yeah. Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, his son Yitzchak. Avraham took his son Yitzchak onto Har Moriah to bring him as a korban. Closest we can get today is the Kaisel. When am I going to the Kaisel again? What's a pocket Mamilla? Oh, last time my credit card wasn't working. You had to pay the machine. Luckily I had some cash with me, but otherwise, I don't know why I had to call the bank. I wonder if I'm overdrawn. Anyway, that's it. I'll never find my way home. The birds ate the breadcrumbs, and Hansel and Gretel are lost. So someone give me an eitzah, daven fast. Keep your focus. Your mind is a muscle. You can train it. Yes, it's harder for us people with ADD. We have a tendency to be more creative, but and we're good at multitasking. But to sit down and learn a piece of Gemara when our mind is wandering around is very hard. And that's why what we have to do, and what I've tried to train myself is, as soon as my mind starts to wander, I literally shake my head and say, okay, back, what did I say? And so when I'm learning, I learn it out loud. And when I'm chazering, I write it down to help keep myself focused. Because otherwise, I will be around the world 3 or 4 times before I find my way back. And it's an avoda. And as people say to me, easier said than done. And I can only say that everything is easier said than done, except for Kriya Shema, where the saying is the doing. Okay. Bayol Shmuel, last week's sponsor. According to Torah, what is love? And it is the same meaning across all healthy relationships, including our relationship with Hashem. Where is love? Does it come from sky above? Is it underneath the willow tree that I've been dreaming of? We put on Oliver when I was in camp, and I applied for Mr. Bumble, and I tried out. They said, "Are you kidding? You're the best actor here. You're going to be Fagin," which was the major role. So I did what I often do. I sat down and memorized the entire play, so I know all the songs. I know all the parts. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was as crazy as I am, and we were reading Pygmalion in class. Pygmalion is the George Bernard Shaw play that was later made into a musical, My Fair Lady, with a happy ending. Pygmalion doesn't have a happy ending. Anyway, he got the part of Henry Higgins, and I got the part of Alfred Doolittle. To say that it was quite a challenge to be able to put together a Welsh Cockney accent. Not everybody can do this. People were actually impressed by my accent. Anyway, so we're both crazy. So everybody's standing there with the book reading, and the two of us memorized our parts. And we actually came in costume. It was just crazy. That's my approach. Anyway, that was from Oliver. Oliver sings that song, not Fagin. And but love. Yes. Avas Hashem, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, Ava v'yachva v'shalom v'reyas that we say in the Sheva Brachas, Avas haben el aviv, all of it is the same thing. Yeah. What is love? Love is drawing close. That's what ahava is. Yira, fear, is holding back. I'll tell you something that's very interesting, psychologically. When something gets us upset, or we disapprove of something, we stare at it. When we really like something, we're a little embarrassed to look at it, because we feel such a strong connection to it. So, love and hate, similar to Ava and Yira, which is Ava is to draw close, and hatred is to pull away. When you hate something, you want nothing to do with it. Now, conversely, Yira is the same thing. I'm afraid. Now, whether you say I'm afraid or I'm in awe, it's the same thing. You become tongue-tied. People aren't able to speak because they know they're in the presence of greatness. And this is a very important side that you can see in people, that they, when they really want something, when they appreciate something, they want to get closer and closer. And that's why in our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, there's Ava and there's Yira, which means there's always tension, because we're trying to get close without getting too close. We want to get close, but we don't want to lose that yira, that kavod, that respect that we have. Yeah? Like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, warm yourself by the hot coals of the chachamim, but don't come so close that you burn yourself. Ahava wants me to be there. Now, how does one develop love? Love is, ahava in Hebrew is from the word hav, which is give. The more you give, the more you love. And that's why people who take, they don't have much of a relationship. And this is one of the biggest problems in marriages today, that people get married thinking, what's in it for me? I've met young couples who get divorced after a short period of time, and many of them use the same line. I don't need this. I don't have to put up with this. You know how many people wanted to marry me? You know what I could have had? I don't need this. Because what's in it for me? And that's why I remember the bumper sticker, I don't know if it was in the 80s or the 90s. God, what have you done for me lately? So if I'm related with the Kodesh Baruch Hu is taking and taking and taking and taking instead of giving, whereas if it's a relationship where I'm giving, then that builds the love. And that's why I have asked this question to groups all around the world of all levels of religious commitment. Who loves who more? Do parents love children more, or do children love parents more? And everybody, no matter where they're coming from, say the same thing. Parents love children more. Why? Because they're giving to their children. Children put it in, I didn't ask to be born. What does that mean? That means you chose this relationship and I didn't. So I'm at a disadvantage in this relationship, which is true. That's true, you are. And that's why very often you see the relationship changes when parents get old, and now the parents need the children to help them. Some of my children believe I'm at that age. I don't think so yet. I don't think I'm that old yet, that infirm. As I told someone, I only look old and infirm. Actually, I'm really quite spry. When I went for one of my angioplasties, so they didn't like one of my kidney functions, so they told me I have to stay in the hospital the night before just to get fluids. There was nothing wrong with me, but I just had to be there to be on a drip all night. So my son says, I'm going to be there. I'm coming to stay with you. I said, absolutely not. You can't come. He says, I'm coming anyway. I said, I will have security take you away. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not sick. I'm not in the hospital. I'm just getting fluids. If I could get a little drip and bring it home with me, I would do it at home. And so he said to me, my brother died at 63. And one of his sons was learning in Israel. And he was about to have this procedure. It was a heart procedure. And his son asked him, Dad, should I come home? He says, nah, it's routine, it's fine. And he died. And the kid got very messed up because he missed his father dying. And he said to me, my son, you're telling me it's a routine procedure, but if you die, and I have that on my conscience the rest of my life, it's going to destroy me. So I have no choice. I have to come. And I was like, wow, what a great line. But, hey, I'm okay. I'm okay. When they cut me open, and I had my heart surgery, that was pretty bad, but okay, now I'm fine. More or less. As well as you can be with this diabetes and heart disease, but otherwise, I'm fine. Yeah. But as children start to help their parents more, their relationship changes. It's very interesting. And that's love. What's love got to do with it? Anyway, all you need is love. Yeah, all right. So that's it for now. I didn't get through all the questions, but I did a few of them at least. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, Orlofsky.com. You can sponsor an episode in honor of your loved one, or just to give chizik to the tzibur. It's a good schus. You can ask a question. You can leave a comment. You can sign up for one of our online shiurim. And that's it for now. Until next time, I am Dovid Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. The Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again, it's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.